Hi, welcome to Old School with Patrick Rooney, the podcast where old school wisdom is new again. I explore natural health, success, and freedom with my amazing guests. Hi, this is Patrick Rooney. Welcome to Old School with Patrick Rooney. We are doing more and more podcasts now, and I'm really excited about that, particularly in the field of success. Because of the COVID situation, I've been dealing with natural health a lot, obviously, and because of the insanity going on in our world today, I've been dealing with freedom a lot too. So both those things have been taking up a lot of my bandwidth, so to speak. But success has always been a part of Old School, and I want to help you get more success out there. So we're going to do some concentration on that in our upcoming videos. With that being said, I am interviewing more and more people on that, and I'm going to start with a good friend of mine for many, many years, Marc Yaffee, who's a successful comedian, and he's going to talk about his life a little bit and things that hopefully will be useful for you. So let me bring Marc on. All right, Marc.
Patrick.
Welcome to Old School with Patrick Rooney.
Oh man, I feel like we're back in the 70s with fit and trim, and I'm glad to get to reminisce and hopefully share some good info with people.
Good, beautiful, man. I was just introduced. I don't know if you heard me in the waiting room, in the green room, so to speak. But
no, they muted me out. I heard nothing. Whatever you said, I hope it was good.
Yeah. I was just mentioning that I'm doing, that I have Old School as my business, and I do natural health, success, and freedom. With COVID, I've been doing tons of stuff related to health. Obviously, we're trying to stay alive here. And I've been doing a lot of the freedom side with all of the attacks on America and things like that that have been going on over the last few months. So what we're missing right now is the success part of that, and that's why I'm bringing you on. Now, and others, I'll be bringing others on as well. But Marc is a successful comedian. I just looked you up today on Wikipedia. Very impressive, man. When you got your own Wikipedia page, you've made it, right?
That's what they say. I don't. 80% of it's pretty accurate. But I like Wikipedia. It's kind of a democratically run. People input the stuff, and then other people can fact check it and correct it. So I'd like to think it's, some people make fun of Wikipedia in some ways, though it may be more valid than a lot of stuff we might see in
yeah. I think it just depends on who you're talking about. There's a guy named, I don't know if you heard of this guy, but I listen to a lot of my politics. I listen to a lot of conservative people. There's a guy who used to be a cop. He's a black guy named Tatum. Officer Tatum is his website. And I looked at he does not have a Wikipedia page though. So you're more famous than him, but he does have something called a wiki or something. Uh-huh. And I looked it up, and I kid you not, and this guy is a successful police officer for many years, and now he's a very successful YouTuber. He's got 1 million followers, and he does very well, brings in a lot of money, and does a lot of good things. I think he does a lot of good work. But what the wiki page said about him was that he is an ex-police officer and a hat salesman.
Hat salesman?
I'm like, what do you mean hat salesman? They're calling him a hat salesman because you know how people are on their page, they sell merch. If they're on YouTube and they sell hats and shirts and whatever, they're calling his job now a hat salesman.
I'm a joke salesman, so
yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be bad just call you a joke salesman. Yeah, but anyway, I'm glad that Wikipedia is pretty. Don't worry about when you see me shooing things here. This is the South, so we're real here in live time. I'm actually shooing wasps. You remember the wasps in the old days, Marc? You go play in the pool, and the wasp would start attacking you, and you'd have to shoot them with the hose.
Yeah, I had an incident the other like a year ago. We went to the redwoods, and we started hiking down to the river, and I stepped on a wasp or hornet's nest, and I got stung about 37 times, and I was
oh my god.
Yeah, it was kind of scary, but because I have a little bit of a reaction to.
Did you have to go to the hospital?
I think I ended up going. We took some Benadryl. I took some Benadryl and just rested, but it took me like 4 or 5 days to get back to normal. Yeah.
Wow.
I think I went to my doctor after a couple of days because it wasn't quite, but just a bad ride. But that's always a scary thing. And then we have a bird feeder. Same thing in my backyard. The wasps love the bird feeder, so it's like All right, got to go open the bird feeder and shoot a wasp off. So hopefully you don't get stung in the interview.
Wasps are a different kind of creature because, bees have their own. Now they got these killer bees that are coming from God knows where, China or whatever. Hey, China, they bring the China.
Murder hornet, killer virus.
Yeah. What next? But yeah, those are nasty creatures. We got everything out here in the South. The South is pretty amazing. So if you see me looking off to here, I'm actually looking for critters on the deck here.
Okay.
But anyway, I want to say about Marc. Marc is a longtime friend, a very good friend, and I've known Marc for decades. I mean, we really kind of grew up together in a way. I mean, you grew up on the other side of the tracks in Arleta area, I believe, right?
Yeah.
But near the McDonald's I used to work at. We went to the same school together. We went to Catholic school together, and we ended up playing basketball together when we were in high school. And that was a lot. Oh man, there's so many laughs. We could do hours of laughs on that alone. You probably have half your career based on your basketball in high school, right?
You know what? I don't talk about that much, but I have no doubt that the reason I'm in stand-up comedy is because of all the good laughs and jokes we developed back then, and a sense of humor. Because it was we had such a good spirit about us, and we could laugh at everything. Sometimes, we laughed at inappropriate stuff, of course, but
yeah,
it was the fact that I think I was more interested. I love basketball, but I was more interested in just hanging out and laughing than I was dedicating myself to the sport, which ended up being a career boost for me.
Well, you always were on point because you knew that you were never going to be. I mean, you're tall, but you ain't that tall, so you're never going to be an NBAer, right? Nor was I.
Yeah.
So we were going to have to make our bones somewhere else. So you picked the right thing. So I've known Marc for years and years. And I mean, we went through that. We went through, I've known you. I mean, man, I don't know if I can, yeah, I don't know if I was going to say all that, but yeah, best man at your wedding. Such a beautiful wedding too. That was such a beautiful day. I'll never forget that day. It was one of the most peaceful days of my life. It was just really beautiful. And your family, I mean, I know your family, love your daughters, and I just it's been really an interesting ride. And then we've kind of fallen out of, we don't talk as much as we used to. And what happened is, one of the reasons I want to bring you on, I mean, several reasons. One is success. I want you to talk about that. But another reason I wanted to have you on is I wanted to have people on that we don't necessarily agree with on everything. I mean, Marc is, you're well known on Facebook. For having you're not shy about your opinions on Facebook, nor am I. And we don't agree on a lot of stuff. We probably do agree on a lot of stuff, but there's probably a lot of stuff I know there's a lot of stuff we don't agree on. But I want to kind of, I don't know, I want that to be part of it too, like to say, hey, can we as Americans, I know we can as the two of us, but
I can't agree to participate in this conversation. I'll start the arguing already.
I am getting a little concerned in general that, and you know what the easy thing is too is, just to say this, when I see sometimes Marc will do something on Facebook and it'll tick me off, like he'll put on like these parodies about Donald Trump, and I love Trump, and I'm a major Trump supporter, and for a lot of reasons. But when Marc has like these parody videos and stuff that he does, and I would get ticked off at him, and sometimes I would send him messages. Sometimes I would send you messages privately, so I didn't want to necessarily air all our, whatever I wanted to say to you, publicly. But sometimes I'd message you or something like that. I said, Marc, come on, man, don't do this. And then, but the interesting thing is, the best thing you can do, this would be good, maybe a little success advice for me, but I would say to people out there, one of the good things to do is be careful of just interacting with people on social media, or email or something, because when you type something out to somebody, you may not be angry or anything like that, but you never know, it can be received a certain way or whatever. Plus you can end up getting into a war, a back and forth or something, and then people are involved. It's kind of like if you're in a fight on the schoolyard and people start surrounding you, you kind of want to look good in front of the crowd a little bit. So
that's such a good point. Now it's just, we're in the pile-on society, no matter what side you're on. Like I post to my super conservative friends, I might bring something up, or you'll post on my page, and my super liberal fans will just like attack, and it's just like, wait. I just was making a meme. I was just trying to have a laugh, and then I look back, I said, well, is it the death of comedy? Can we make fun of ourselves anymore? And
yeah,
everyone, and a lot of it, it's not just I don't think it's just a political situation. I think it's just it's a cultural and emotional situation. We really lost a lot of our boundaries and perspective because we're just, COVID and people are working and they're frustrated.
Yeah.
Why are they doing this to me? And why is Trump doing this? Why are the Democrats doing, what are the doctors, Fauci is changing. And we have such an overload and people are ready to say, hey, like you said, take 5-10 seconds before you just lash out at someone. It's just so easy to hit that button.
You know what really helped me too was I called you up. I called you on the phone because we know each other so long. And it's funny when you hear somebody saying something, but then when you talk to them, and I'll just say this, and a nice thing about you, Mark, as I think for you, I don't see you as like a mean-spirited kind of person. And then when I talk to you, I realize, you're a smart dude and you have a lot of sense. I don't think you have all political sense, but you don't think I do either. But you have a lot of sense on a lot of things. So when we actually talk, you can hear the person, you can talk to them. You're actually talking to a human being back and forth. And you can agree or disagree, but there's more of a humanity there than when we're kind of cut off and just kind of like challenging each other on Facebook. It's a different kind of world.
And then, for a second there, I thought, Pat's calling is going to elevate, and I didn't know you were there to de-escalate. I was kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? Should I talk to him? He's coming after me. Is this going to be the end of the friendship? No, it's Patrick.
Yeah, I actually lost another friend. Maybe he'll see this at some point. I guess I can name him first name. It's okay, right? I can name first name people. I have an old friend named Tom, who you know too, and he's probably still a Facebook friend of yours. I'm just putting this out there. I don't think it hurts to say this. It might help people. I got into a thing with him where we had a disagreement. It was the thing about Obama. I never liked Obama, and he didn't like some of the stuff I said about Obama when Obama was president. And anyway, I was asking him at some point, I said, hey, when I'm on Facebook, I was trying to kind of establish a what do you call that? A company space, what do you call that? A brand, so to speak. And so I was telling him after a certain while, I don't really want to talk too much. And now I kind of talk about politics. But at the time, I was trying to kind of keep it down the middle as much as I could. I didn't want to keep politics away from the business and that kind of thing. And I told him that, and he didn't respond well to that. So we got into kind of a back and forth, and I ended up having to unfriend him on Facebook, right? He never forgave me for that. He wanted me to apologize, and I couldn't apologize. I wanted to apologize because I wanted the friendship back, but I couldn't apologize because I didn't see myself as being wrong. And I don't think a person should apologize unless they see themselves as wrong. I can't just do it just for your feelings or whatever. So I actually lost, at least up until now, and I've tried several times with him, I've actually lost a friend through that Facebook experience. I tried to gain that one back as well on phone, and it just never worked. So I guess,
you didn't call him, he didn't pick up?
Oh yeah.
So he just couldn't have a civil conversation.
No, because he wanted me to apologize. I wanted to. I really wanted to, Mark, but I couldn't because it wasn't in me. I just didn't see myself as wrong. It would be insincere to apologize if I'm not seeing myself as wrong. But anyway, I don't want to bag on Tom. I love Tom. I've known him for a long, long time, and I hope that we are friends again. But I'm just kind of illustrating what happens out there in the social media world that we're in now. And I think about when we were young. We had a lot of good times, obviously. But also, if you remember way back in the day, we come from a different world. And I often bring this I try to bring this into my work a little bit. There's a culture thing that's going on. But the world that we came from, no matter what people's politics, our parents probably were the same. My parents were Democrats, right? I think yours probably were too. But they weren't, so I don't want to get political here, but to me, there's a vast difference between the old Democrats and a lot of the new Democrats. Because the old Democrats are always patriotic. My dad flew the flag. He was a veteran. Your dad was your stepdad, right? He was a veteran, I believe.
Yeah.
And they flew the flag, right? Every time there was a holiday, they flew the flag. And they disagreed about politics stuff. But in the old days, politics was, we still had a lot of agreements, even though we were on different sides of the fence. And now it's like,
I don't even know if they disagreed because it seems like they didn't really talk about it much, to be honest.
Yeah.
I never knew who my parents voted for. I kind of knew they were Democrats, but they didn't sit there and to really discuss it. It was like my mom was like, "Well, I never say who I vote for." She's still that way. She's
Really?
old. Yeah.
I only say it because I want to try to get people to vote my way.
Yeah, yeah, but I think that, like you said, it was, on one hand, it was a little bit more of some structure. On the other hand, there was a lot. I think there's probably a lot of
Yes.
repressed, and there's alcoholism, and you had
Yeah.
the World War II veterans and the Korean people that went through PTSD and stuff, and people that grew up in abusive families, and there was a lot of stuff there swept under the rug. So on one hand, everything's more out in the open. The other hand, we all feel we need to have an opinion on everything that's out in the open. I think that's where the trouble comes in, is we just have an oversaturation of information.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting because you're right that generation was very John Wayne-ish, kind of like bite your upper lip, especially for men. And I think a lot of that is good to a certain point.
I have to stop you there. I don't espouse John Wayne as a Native American.
Oh, that's right. That's right. By the way, we can get into this a little bit, but I did see something, and I want to talk about your upbringing a little bit as well. But I'll hold that for just a moment. But I did want to ask you a little bit about that. But yeah, it's just in the old days there was a war. Like my dad was in World War II. I think your stepdad was in World War II as well.
Yeah, my adopted dad. Yeah. Well, he enlisted in 1944, but by the time he deployed, the war had ended like a month later. So he's still considered a World War II veteran because he was in service, but he didn't see combat. And I don't know your dad's story if he did.
He was out in the Pacific. He was on a USS Wasp, which is a carrier.
And I remember the Wasp. That saw a lot of action too.
He did. He actually saw kamikaze Japanese planes come out and bomb his ship, and he had guys die near him. He really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. What his job was he pulled out the cord, that big cable, so that when the planes came down, the cable stopped them.
One of the most dangerous jobs on the carrier those days.
Yeah.
Carriers were, the decks were wood, so if the kamikaze hit, everything was just on fire. There's fuel everywhere.
Yeah. So I think those guys went through a lot. They couldn't talk about it for a long time. And there was a lot of repressed stuff, but you can understand why in a certain way. And I think those guys were also, quite frankly, a lot tougher than we are today. And we could use some of their toughness back today, I believe. We don't have a lot of toughness in the world. I see a lot of violence in the world, but I don't see a lot of actual courage out there.
Well, there's a few fake machos in the gym and the affliction guys. And then there's still the career military guys and the young guys and women that join. I mean, I bag on millennials like a lot of people on our gen. It's like now it's like boomer, millennial, Gen X versus Gen Z. It's just that I think that's the new divide is almost going to be age as much as cultural.
What is Gen Z? What is Gen Z?
Like I think that's Z as in the last generation. I don't know, but there's Gen X.
Oh, Z. I thought you said C, like vitamin C or something. Okay.
Z is in zoo, and
yeah.
So I think each generation produces its share of really valuable people, its share of kind of shaky characters. You can say, well, there's Antifa and there's this and there's that and there's militia, and there's still people that are serving the country and that are dedicated to
I agree.
Yeah, Admiral McCraven, he's one that that led the Osama raid for Bin Laden. He's saying he thinks the millennials are one of the best generations he's ever seen. Now we watch the news or we read certain things. We're like, oh, these guys are all crazy. But I think the percentage of just whack jobs is probably lower than we believe, but it's covered at a higher degree where we think it's like, oh my, Antifa's about to chicken my back door, or they make it look like the militia's going to storm my front door and have shit out in the house, So
yeah, there may be some truth to that. that there's different perceptions. Also, each generation does have its certain good things going for it. I mean, in other words, a lot of these people, a lot of the millennials, I'll say, yeah, like morally, I would say I don't see the grounding that we had, but I would say in other areas, very bright, very creative, questioning, maybe too questioning. Mm-hmm. Well, I would say questioning of our side maybe a lot, but I don't know. It's funny the way people question now too, because I used to remember we see those question authority signs, like in those bumper stickers, everything was question authority back in the day, but now it's kind of like weird. It's like the people more on the right now are more, especially after COVID, like we're the question authority people but it's
Mhm.
flipped around, and like the other people are not questioning the authority as far as
Sure,
that.
but if you think about it, like conservatives were like, hey, we're really not a big fan of the public school. We think we're going to keep our kids out. And now conservatives are, hey, kids got to go to school.
Right.
And then liberal people, we really can't be telling people what to do with their bodies. Oh, you got to wear a mask. So
Right. There's a
it is
lot.
flip flop, and maybe we, I hate to say we shouldn't get caught up in the identities of, because we want to have, everyone wants to, it seems like everyone wants to be on a team, but maybe we just have to be just open to like, okay, what's the best idea from both, and to just really start listening and say, hey, these guys make a lot of sense. Maybe I gotta, ask. Maybe I'm not. I think a lot of it is we're not asking ourselves the right questions. We're just accepting the wrong answers.
I agree, and I think no matter what we feel about a particular subject, let's say COVID. I mean, I'm going around now, and you're probably more of a mask guy than I am. I'm guessing, but I don't know for sure. But am I putting you on the spot? Yeah, yeah,
Oh no, I'll wear a mask if I'm around people. I'm not gonna wear a
yeah,
mask like when I go hiking or
yeah.
I'm not around, and I don't wear it in my car.
Yeah. You're a little more of the balanced person, because I've seen definitely people that go extreme with it. But there is I think there's a lot, and I ask this on my videos a lot. Like, there doesn't seem like a lot of questioning of like the right question, like what you just said, like kind of like asking the right questions. There doesn't seem to be a lot of, I don't know, asking a lot of the good questions that we need to ask. There's a lot of like, and maybe this is part of the tribalism I see out there. There's kind of like we've separated into tribes now, and I think there's a lot of people want to be part of something. So I think a lot of people would rather be part of a particular team than actually ask questions, right? I mean, I have that on my side, so to speak, as well. I mean, I'm having an issue right now with some of the people on my side, and what I'm saying is, I see, and hopefully we can come together on some of this stuff. I see that my country is being attacked right now, like crazy stuff. This statue is being pulled down. Now, you may disagree or whatever on some of these statue people. You may not like some of these people. I understand from your perspective. But I think we can all agree, like, burning down buildings is not cool. I'm shooing stuff. I told you guys I'm in the South here. So burning down buildings is not cool. Rioting and looting people's stores. I mean, I hope that enough Americans can kind of come together on that stuff.
I can't see too many people are on board with people breaking into a Vans shoe store and stealing all the high-end footwear.
Yeah.
I don't think that's anyone's cause.
Yeah, and what I'm kind of on my side about right now is I see a lot of, and it should be for everyone. I shouldn't say my side, because it's really the same for everybody. I see a lot of, like I say, I'm getting back to this cowardice question. I see people allowing too much. They're allowing their country to get ripped apart and just basically standing by and idle by. And I think we need to be more engaged to actually not only do something now, like to stop the actual stuff as much as we can, support the police, support whatever we can to keep the structures around, but the structures that are underneath those, that raise people, that the fatherless homes. And I mean, I talk about those in my videos, and people don't really want to talk about that too much. It's not a sexy subject, but you look at the Black community, for instance. Black community has been decimated by, I would say, government overreach, and starting with the fathers out of the homes. I think we need to be talking about some of these underlying issues that are causing all of this chaos to go on. Mm-hmm. What do you say about that?
Well, I would agree that the parents not being around is a huge issue, and we got to go back to the politics and say, well, the government doesn't want to, and you can say, like, well, the government doesn't want to support companies that are against contraception. You say, well, if people are going to have kids they can't afford, and now we don't want them to terminate that pregnancy because we're pro-life, and now that, well, they couldn't get access to birth control. You could find a way. I know what you're saying. You say, well, there is a I think all parties bear some responsibility. We can't say, well, if it's just this way, it's going to be fine. If we just have this, a Democratic agenda where it's abortion on demand, or we have a Republican agenda where there's just, for some, there's no exception for abortion. I mean, I'm not trying to go way off the subject, but I'm saying we have to have a common ground and say, hey, yeah, we can say, we can blame the problem with no father in the home in the Black community. I can talk to 5 Black men that will say, hey, you look at the statistics, There's some statistics show black fathers are more involved in raising of their children and hands-on parenting and hours spent with their children. And it may not be in the same structure that we are used to, that we grew up, but I mean, we always have to dig that next level down and say, okay, what are the statistics telling us, and what are we actually, what's the actual reality of the situation, and how are we being skewed by either side? And there's always that manipulation of the facts. And when it gets down to it, you're right. You need involvement of two parents is always, optimal. A structure is always optimal. Boundaries are, I think everyone agrees on that. The kid has to know right from wrong and learn a set of values. And I think we got to get back to what are those common cores everyone can agree on, and start with that. We have to kind of rebuild our conversation.
Well, let me, because you kind of said a lot here, but let me dive a little deeper on the family thing, because I think this is a very unifying issue when we really think about it. And this goes way back. In one of my videos recently, I did a thing about how we can come back, and I talked about the family unit. I talked about the fathers being either not in the home or not dealing. They're really there but not there, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And what happens is, and this becomes a very unpopular subject among a lot of people, but just to be real about this, when the fathers pull back, usually a lot of times you have a very kind of overbearing mother, and the mother kind of goes too far. I remember when I was a kid, for instance, when I was growing up, and you knew me originally, I was getting a lot of crap from my mom in the sense that my dad was kind of out of the picture, right? Love my parents, and they're both gone now, but my dad was just out of the picture. I don't think a lot of stuff he really knew better, but he kind of retreated. Like remember in the old days, fathers used to retreat to their garages. I don't know if you remember that, but my dad had a garage, and he would go smoke his Camel cigarettes unfiltered. And yeah. You remember that? So he would be like, and a lot of his friends were like that. They kind of retreat to their garage. But I noticed even in those days, my parents had very overbearing, like they couldn't handle their wives, so they would just go back to the garage and smoke and work on their projects.
But I gotta interrupt real quick though. But I don't think necessarily that the wife was overbearing. I think the wife was overwhelmed because the father worked all day. He's tired. I want to go have a cigarette and a drink. She's been dealing with these kids, crazy kids all day, and you're, three brothers or two brothers, and at home with you, and they're overwhelmed, so they're lashing out. I don't think necessarily they were an overbearing person. I think that they were they didn't have any break. They had emotional issues too, just like the dads. They didn't get the escape. So who are they going to take it out on? Who do we take it out on now?
Yeah, and it's not what I'm saying. I don't want to get it. I'm not blaming one or the other. It's just there's certain roles, right? And men have always had the role, which I believe is the right one, of being the head of the family, right? The head of the wife, the head of the wife and children. But that's all changed now. That's a whole nother matter. But I'm saying the way it kind of got like that is like the man couldn't really handle his wife, whether you want to call it whatever it was. But there's a reason why they retreated to begin with. They really couldn't handle the heat, as far as that's what I saw. And I saw that in a lot of my parents' friends, same thing. And I knew a lot of really pushy women that were really dominant and stuff. And the men just kind of took off. But and if you look at the movie,
dominant one, yeah.
Yeah, you remember the movie, and I put this in one of my videos. Remember the movie with James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause? If you watch that movie, and I showed some of these scenes, there are scenes in that movie that talk about this, where he is just so fed up with his father for not standing up to his mother. And he just gets fed up and he goes crazy, the kid. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And so what I'm saying is, I think all this stuff is traced back, not all of it 100%, but a huge amount of this is traced back, even back in the day when we were growing up and I saw a lot of the madness around me. That stuff was all there. It just wasn't as obvious as it is now. You know what I mean? Things have everything that we see now was actually around back then too. And you kind of alluded to that earlier a little bit, but now it's just kind of hasn't been corrected. And it just seems like it's just gone overboard.
Yeah. And again, I'll say, well, there's the flip side. You got the cowering wife, the husband. I know there's ones where the wife isn't allowed to leave, the husband keep going. Sure. Basically hands-on, you watch us, you see that in culture. You watch The Sopranos. There's some really strong cultures where it's some Latino families. I've seen that, not my family, but where the men have total control over the situation. And okay, then what's the result of that? Maybe mom is repressed and angry and takes it on the kids. There's always
Yes.
that there's always going to be as long as you perpetuate the cycle of resentment and
Yeah, that's what it is.
build up, then it's got to be expressed somewhere, whether it's going to be on your kids who get screwed up for life, or it's going to be on your other family members. It's got to go somewhere. It's just, I mean, you get back to the root of it. It's people's resentment. And
Yeah. It's really a great point, because it's not enough to have the structure itself in place, but the people themselves, if they're out of order to begin with, if we're internally out of order, then we're going to be externally out of order. So you can put the man in charge of whatever, and then he ends up going overkill, and puts his wife in a box all day or whatever. Obviously, that's not right. Which brings me up to a point, and I mentioned this to you the other day, and I talk about this in my videos too, because I think it's so important. Internal controls. And I remember back in the day, in fact, I started to meditate, right? I started to learn how to meditate and kind of just get still so I could see what was going on, right? And I started changing a lot after that. And I think I have been continuously, probably over the years. And the funny thing is, a friend of mine named Mark is the one that introduced me to all that stuff. You remember all that?
all his fault. Yeah, Red Masters. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I used to do that. And I've been
Like
doing that for like 35 years now.
it's a good practice. I think that's no matter what your political philosophy or your spiritual philosophy, every spiritual philosophy involves some meditation or silent prayer. So
yeah,
no one can disagree on that. So, that's satanic. What you're doing, you're sitting quietly. There's no one will say it in any religion.
No, they do say it. But some of them do. Some of them say, "Oh, that's of the devil," and I try to say,
well, yeah, depending on how the meditation, it's but just silence. If you just strip away the practice and where you're meditating, if you're doing prayer beads or
right.
You're right. Yeah, but so we can always, again, there's a perfect example. We can always find the negative and a positive.
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of people they'll say, "Oh, that's not Christian." I say, no, Christians, I'm sure from the get-go, I'm sure including Jesus, were praying to their Father, and I almost guarantee you he wasn't praying with just words all the time. He was praying in spirit. Even the Bible talks about that. It says that we pray, we don't know what to say, so the Spirit intercedes on our behalf. Do you remember reading that somewhere in the Bible? So I would like to see, maybe for me, like part of what I do in old school is kind of cultural, but we can have a lot of disagreements. But I think when we kind of peel it back and bring it back to ourselves and what getting control within, it seems like if people could do that and learn that, and not everyone wants to do that, I get that, but for the people that do, the more that we can bring people within, then we start establishing external controls, and then our world has controls to it. And because we have to have some controls, we don't want to be stilted, but yet we need boundaries, right? Kids need boundaries, and even adults need boundaries.
Well, and I would, and I don't want to sound too new agey, but why should it be controls? We need guideposts,
Yeah.
I think people need.
Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
That's the other thing, because people love to have rebellion against control. What's happening with the mask? Because hey, if we had a discussion and say, well, this is here, whether it's the mask, whatever. This is the benefits. Here's the pitfalls. Here's why we're asking you to do this. Let's say we never had an adult conversation. We had they had this whole thing like, oh, don't wear any masks, don't wear any masks. Turns out, because we didn't have enough masks, so we lied to people. All these other countries were wearing, just as an example. So now people are like, well, I don't trust you anymore. Now you're saying all of a sudden, oh, you get it?
I swatted.
I'm a Buddhist. I have to end this right now because you killed that.
I don't think I killed him. I think I just stunned him and he's flying away.
It was like this huge wasp or something that flew by earlier. I'm like, man. Yeah. I don't think I could live there as beautiful as it is. I'm in the desert. There's no bugs here.
One thing is nice about the desert is the dry air. I'll give you that. And I used to live in Southern Cal, so they had that desert air, which I really enjoy.
We have a pond, no mosquitoes. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And but yeah, having bugs is something I had to get used to. You got to like wear stuff, and it's a little bit of an extra hassle, I have to say. And you see me pouring right now?
You spray like bug spray and.
I put some stuff on. It's called I forgot the name of it, but you can get it online. But I use that and kind of put it all over my body. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do in the South, man. But I want to get back to what you said. I don't want to take away from it because you're making points. You were saying people they don't want controls, right? And they're rebelling against that. Yeah. So
Right rebelling against the left, left's rebelling against the right. Right. I mean, I know there's, like you say, where you have to have some universal truths and some shared values. But I think, people are really good at pushing each other's buttons. What are we
yeah,
doing? What are we doing to help someone? Instead of saying, "Oh, who can I piss off on Facebook?" Well, gee, where can I go volunteer today? Where can we channel our energy? Because we got a lot of pent up energy. I know I do. I've been home. I'm used to be out working on ships. Last year I was in the ocean for 8 weeks. So it's like, okay, what are my practices? How can we change ourselves and be better people? Because I think that's what's going to bleed into other people. I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to change. We want to change. We're tired of, people that are sucking off the system or creating violence or looting. I mean, I can do so much. I'm not a government authority. I'm not a law enforcement officer. What do I do? How do I try to talk to people?
yeah.
Are we treating people with respect? And even at the end of the day, we're still supposed to forgive these. There's just still forgiveness component.
No, I think
I got to forgive President Trump. We don't like a looter. Well, we got to forgive this guy. Doesn't mean we condone it.
right.
And that's a hard practice. Like you want to just grab something, reach to the television and throw
No,
it.
I agree with you. I've been thinking about this a lot myself lately, which is anytime we get a little bit too pulled into social media or whatever, there's a lot of sense of talking about other people, right? And everybody's in their tribe, so the tribe talks about the other tribe, and that's where they get the fuel, the anger to kind of keep being a tribe member. But I think that whole tribalism thing is very dangerous. That's another reason, because it tends to make us look at somebody else. Yes, we can see what we see about the world and we can change what we want. But I like that Gandhi thing. I always like that Gandhi thing where he says, be the change. It's kind of a little corny, but I believe it. Be the change that you want to see in the world. And every time I start getting a little too pulled into look at that person or look at that going on, and I start feeling something about it, I know I've gone over. I've gone over too far. And I say, well, as soon as I'm starting to feel like a little edge and a little anger comes up about stuff, I'm like, wait a minute. You're pulling your eyes off of yourself. It's very dangerous. And so that's because it's not even sustainable. You don't feel good about it. You feel kind of empty. And it's like, we have to sustain ourselves. I mean, it's almost like the first law of life should be is to sustain life. And if we can't sustain ourselves, we're going to be in trouble. If we're just pointing at other people, it's doomed to fail, the whole thing. So anyway, I think you said it. If you want to say anything else about that, it's fine. But I think you already said a lot of the point on that. Can I ask you about your upbringing a little bit?
Sure, we can go to that painful subject. Yeah, of course.
I know that you were adopted, and I think that's open. You've told people that. I'm not saying any secret.
Although my 91-year-old mom now says, "Oh, don't tell anyone about the adoption thing."
Really? I thought that was. Is that
knowledge? And now she's decided. Well, they live in a senior community, so now it's all on lockdown because of COVID. They don't want the seniors, so they don't really gather in the community. Because I did a couple of shows at the senior community forum, and I joked about I was adopted by Navajo, adopted by Mexican mother, Jewish father. I'm a bargain hunter gatherer, and all this stuff. But
Mexico.
Can you not mention that adoption thing? I said, Mom, it's pretty obvious. I got this 5'9" Jewish father, this 5'2" Mexican American lady, and me, 6'2", look nothing like him. So it doesn't take she goes, yeah. Someone such and such asked, is Mark adopted? And what? He goes, how would she have any clue about that? I said, she has good vision.
So you've talked about this, right? It's something you've talked about, I guess, right? And openly, or yeah, okay. So what is that? I wasn't adopted, obviously. So I had my natural, parents, and we had our issues and things, but I still had natural parents. So it's probably another level of whatever that I got. What was that like? How old were you when what age did you know you were adopted?
Well, everyone always asks that. I don't remember exactly. I think around 3 or 4. I think my mom told me, we didn't have you, but we love you. Stuff like that. I think they were pretty good about that. And in retrospect, I don't think she would have tried. Maybe now in retrospect, she would have tried to deny it. But it's like you can't really do that with the kid.
Right.
In fact, I've had some friends that they were adopted by family members. I had a good college friend. She found out on her wedding day that her aunt was her mom. Her mom was her aunt. The mom.
Really?
Like that's
on your wedding day?
Either wedding day or the day before, because she was always closer with her aunt, and somehow it came out. single mom. The other one had a family. So, you know, back in the day, it was all very secretive about it.
Yeah.
Now it's open adoption and
Yeah.
everyone involved. It, you know, but yeah, it was, I always knew. And then when so that was,
Well, you always knew before you were told?
did I know before I was told?
Yeah. Did you feel something before you were told or no?
Too early. I don't think so because I was so young. Maybe, you know, maybe I always think there's that possibility. I think intrinsically a being knows if it's separated from its natural mother, if something's askew.
Yeah.
I was with my birth mother for like 15 minutes and then like, okay, time to go. Yeah.
And birth father, I wanted to get into as well. But so what was your relationship? Was it close or not close with your you call him your adopted father or your adopted mother?
Yeah, just my parents, you know. I think growing up, I was closer with my mom just because my dad was working.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah,
working.
I was kind of closer with my mom, and I kind of paid for that later because I think it's the way it was. The mother was there, the father wasn't there. What about now? At some point when you were, I think, 25 or so, you found out about your actual mother?
Yeah, my birth mother wrote to me. I was working for the state of California and got some big FedEx letters in that 1986, 1987. And had a 9-page handwritten letter and some pictures, and just like all at once, you just find this whole you know. She had known where I lived since I was 18, but she waited another 7 years. She didn't want to intrude into the family structure and was trying to be respectful. But she basically, since she gave me up for adoption, she was always kind of determined to find me.
Yeah.
You know, I guess she suffered a lot through like holidays and my birthday, and you know, it was always just she was wondering what happened.
Oh, wow.
It was very cathartic for her. And, you know, she had a lot of issues, I believe, as a result of it. I'm sure I had some too. You know, you have that. I think you have a sense of loss, whether you know it or not. And
yeah,
what
was that? I mean, like, did you wonder about who your your actual mother and actual father were?
Once in a while, I would. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think about if I went to like go bowling or just go somewhere. Why? I wonder if someone out here is like my cousin or my brother or sister. You know,
yeah.
It didn't. You know, it didn't weigh on me a lot. It would just pop into my head sometime, you know. But I hadn't been looking. I wasn't actively thinking about ever find them. You know, I was just pretty content. Yeah.
So what was your reaction once you got the letter from your mother?
I think I ended up calling her like a day or two later, or spoke on the phone, and then I told my adopted parents. And first they seemed kind of supportive of them, but then there was a lot of resentment over, I think, you know, just fear and feeling, you know, like it was not her right to do that. She gave you up. She didn't, you know, come into your life. And it's like, hey, you know, my feeling is you have more than one child. You love them just as much. I can, you know, I still doesn't change my love or respect for what you did for me. But, you know, it's now it's just like kind of my mom just ignores, you know, she doesn't really bring it up anymore. She's got some cognitive issues now. So she's kind of in her own.
Okay. I can,
but I think it made for a little bit of friction, but yeah.
I can see that. I mean, I can see their side of it in the sense of just kind of natural human reaction. Like they put all the work in and they, you know, bind with,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's kind of like the prodigal son story, you know, like the old prodigal, the young guy swoops in and gets all the attention from dad after the other one was with him all the time. So your reaction to hearing from her was no shock or anything or any, I don't know.
Say that again.
Was it your reaction when you heard from your mother was no shock to related to it or anything like that? Or
oh, it was pretty shocking. Yeah. I mean, I read this letter. I just sat there at the middle at work, and I was just like, kind of crying, and just sit there and just like, man, this is super powerful, you know. And you don't have any control over that reaction. It just happened. And then she tried to introduce me to my birth father, but his family was very resistant because he's been in and out of jail and a lot of drug and alcohol issues. So I ended up not meeting him. And then it turned out I got on one of these people searches, and he had been living like within a couple miles of where I was living in Reno for years. Yeah, we didn't even know no one even knew it. I just, you know, ran his name and age, and you know, those things come up. It's a computer, you can find pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, so who knows? Maybe I walked right past the guy on the street.
So he's still around. He's still living today.
No, there's no record. Kind of the trail dropped off. I got one of these people search, and I had some guy online kind of investigator just checking around. And they had some records. He'd been in jail in Las Vegas area, and then his phone. They had a phone number for him. His phone was. I tried calling. His phone was disconnected, and so I just did that. It's like, yeah.
Did you feel like a lot of times a man and his father, there's like a connection or a desire did you really like want to find him, or was there anything there where you say, I want to find my actual father?
No, not really. I was a little mixed. I said it would be nice to meet him, but I wasn't driven. Like I have to find this. This is my purpose.
Yeah.
And I think someone was like, this guy sounds kind of like bad news. I don't want to end up with a situation, like these NBA players, the dad, son, oh, you signed a contract, or pop into his life, and all of a sudden, hey, if you could just spare a couple $1,000, So I think some of it was like, one, maybe that's my emotional insecurities. I didn't want to, I wanted to keep my distance. Two, I didn't, my family dynamics. Then I didn't feel like I wanted to withhold it from my parents, much as traumatic as it was from my birth mother. And then hey, by the way, I found my birth dad. I just didn't want. I didn't want to, one hand, tell them, and then I didn't want to be disingenuous and not tell them and withhold it. So that was part of it. And then three was just sheer laziness. You got to track someone down. It's not easy.
Yeah, right. It takes work. So how do you feel now about all this? Do you feel complete? Like you're grown, obviously grown. I mean, you're well past grown. We're well past grown now, Mark. How do you feel today? Do you feel complete, satisfied? Do you feel like something's missing, or you have what you need, or how do you feel today inside?
I think, I think there's always that. I feel pretty much complete, but you should know. I think that's just human nature. Never feel 100% satisfied. I feel at peace with my life and the decisions, good or bad, I made, and I accept, okay, this is the present moment. And if it's going to be where I'm going to meet my father, or I'm going to have, I have a great relationship with my birth brother. My birth sister, she's a little nutty.
That was a wasp. I gotta nail this guy. Sorry.
We don't want you to go into anaphylactic shock during the.
I'm gonna have to go into like a big net or something to do these.
Yeah, one of those malaria nets when you film.
I think I seriously probably need a malaria net to do these shows, because when it's hot out here, man, there's you get these things are all over the place.
Oh yeah, they want the food. Yeah.
They want what food?
They want shade and food. Yeah, your food, and they want shade also.
Yeah.
So yeah, my short answer is yeah. I feel at peace. I don't say I feel totally complete. There's always going to be that something, because you didn't have that family dynamic was kind of taken away. You can't ever totally repair that. But I mean, overall, I feel super blessed. My adoptive parents gave me a great life and a lot of great relatives, and people didn't treat me different. I always felt that I'm a little different because I'm not blood related, but they treated me just like one of the everyone. So it was more on me than it was on them. They didn't say, "Oh, you're adopted. We don't want to play." I mean, it wasn't that.
Right.
No one ever used it against me and my family to say, "Well, there's us and there's you." Yeah, it was always.
I always feel like there's a point where we have to move on anyway. It's like we make our peace with whatever the past was or wasn't. And I remember, we talk about in 12-step AA types of things, and I've heard in people say, and religious people as well, talk about making amends in different ways. And I remember going through that stage of trying to make amends with my parents, so to speak. I went back and talked to them about some of the things I didn't like that they did, and did my best to forgive them, and at least in a bodily sense. I don't know that I've forgiven them or not to this day, but I've done everything that I feel like I could do and talk to them about these things. But did you ever have one of those kind of moments with with maybe your adopted parent?
I tried, and then with my adopted parents and my birth mother, we had some heart-to-heart talks. I forgave her. I said I appreciated what she did, because she thought about when the adoption within the family.
Yeah.
She would give me my aunt, her older sister, but she was pregnant at the same time, so that would have been kind of weird. Oh yeah, it's my brother. We're born 5 months apart. Like we're gonna figure that one out. I'm not good at math, but so no. I mean, I don't hard. And my dad, I always, again, is like the kind of the weaker link in the family. Why didn't you kind of stand up more? And
Yeah.
Now he has certain burdens he has with my mom, because he's kind of the caregiver, and she was always the caregiver and waiting on him. Was that the old traditional Ozzie and Harriet roles?
Yeah.
As for her, it's not good enough. So he has to deal with this, and because
it's never good enough. It's never good enough. Yeah.
And you can see his resentment. It's like, oh, what am I? I just do this, and she doesn't appreciate it. and always she's like, your father just ignored, so there's that sad, it's kind of that sad dynamic.
Yeah.
So to not might say my goal, my conscious thought is to not repeat that dynamic in my relationships. And
Yeah, and I wish you well with that, because what I just realized now in talking to you is our weak spots are there, and hopefully God corrects those as we go and ask him to do so. But I know I'm really coming to the conclusion more and more. I just realized this now in talking to you, that the weak spots that we have that need correction are not things that we can't change them ourselves somehow. We can't, I mean, I've tried like in many ways my whole life to like make changes, and I realize they're just there until they are corrected for us in some kind of way.
right. It's literally like if you had a broken bone, you can't go in there and set
Yeah.
the bone. You
Yeah.
might have to go on for a while, and you can't be resentful of this. I can't get to a doctor. I have to accept it.
Yeah.
You get the opportunity, and there's the moment where you get to get this, like you said, you get a healing or it passes on, and it's like, this is a cycle. I mean, we're not the first people. There's so many.
Not by any means. Not by any means.
Father dynamic or fatherless home dynamic. You can see it's like the Legos, they fit, right? Well, you see how that's going to turn out,
Yeah.
A, B, addiction, resentment. But, I think a lot of it people have to remember is we want to, you did talk about going back to traditional structure. It's super difficult now because it's just given the economics, it happens in a parent home.
Don't you think, Mark, that some of that has been engineered by the powers that be to keep us having to work so that they will break up our traditional structures?
Well, some people blame it on, say it's a government and based on, whether it's a socialist philosophy or whatever, and other people, I'm more of it's a corporate economic interest. Like, hey, we get people working and now we get stressed. Now mom and dad both have to work, so now we can sell more fast food and easy to cook dinners, and now everyone's more stressed, so we can sell more Prozac. Everyone's got, it's to blame one entity over the other. I think government is a reflection of the societal problems rather than society being an outcome of government problems.
Okay.
So
but and I'm not really, when I said powers that be, I actually didn't say the word government, but because I didn't really mean just government. What's that?
I can read your mind. Yeah,
No. I really don't mean just the government. I really, believe me, I'm kind of a hippie conservative. I'm not a corporate conservative. I never really have been. And Kanye West, of all people, we can get into Kanye West if we want. I don't want to get into it necessarily in this. There's a lot to say on Kanye, but I'm not laughing at Kanye. I like Kanye in a lot of ways, but running for president is a little odd. But Kanye West mentioned this in one of his videos, and he gets into some very interesting subject if you've ever seen him interviewed. He's a very interesting guy. And he was talking about how, speaking of, you were talking about the corporate, he was talking about how we have been designed into these situations where somebody has to work way over here. They have to do, I worked for an organization for years and years when I was in Southern Cal, and I was commuting. I commuted for like 13 years. I spent like 2.5 hours on the freeway every day. So
for a 20-minute drive in the traffic.
Yeah, and so believe me, I know what you mean about that, because that is a problem that we have been pulled so far away. That's why one reason why I moved to a more rural type of area, because I want to live a more natural life, because I want to live closer to the food. I want to be like a hunter and a fisherman like the people of old. Like I was going to ask you about your dad was actually Indian, right?
My birth father was a Mexican and Navajo, but I can't say I have no hunting or fishing skills.
Yeah, hunting gathering skills.
The frozen food section, I can take out a tilapia. No problem.
Yeah, you're a killer in the frozen food section.
Real quick though, you bring up a point. Is this is the one silver lining of COVID is a lot of people are going to go back to small town living and rural living.
Yeah.
And I never understood when back in the 90s when the tech boom hit why more people weren't going to small towns. I've always I lived in a small town for years, and I think it's a great place to raise kids.
Yeah.
I have a sense of community. There can be some insulation and people know too much of your business, but man, I hope more people do. Nothing against city. You want to live in a city, that's your thing. You're young, but eventually, I think we need space. We need nature. You need some life skills. And hey, and the more people, let's repopulate the hinterlands. That's what I say.
Yeah, I've always been. I'm a big proponent of independence in my life and in my business, and I want to see more independence from myself and from others. And I remember you've always been into that independent type of life, and I appreciate that a lot. But that's another way that, see, we're being controlled, whether we call ourselves, whatever our political structure is, we're all being under a certain kind of control. And for instance, I mean, I get into stuff in my videos, like I'm going to probably do a video soon about the taking away of the cash. Now, you may say, okay, well, that's okay because cash is dirty or whatever. But we don't necessarily think of the independence related to cash that we don't have anymore once cash is gone. And even cash, taking it another step. But if you think about the people of old, think about, like, your answers. Think about the Indians, Native Americans. I'm saying the politically incorrect term. We call them the Indians, but
original landowners.
Yeah, there you go. But even I always was like kind of like I always respected the Indian, Native American kind of life of independence. These guys were like, they understood the land, they understood the nature. Now think about, you can't really take away independence. You can't crush down on these people of old, because they knew how to grow their own food. They knew how to hunt and fish. They knew how to build structures. They knew how to overcome illnesses through, the way they sweated out. And all that. What's that?
That's exactly what happened. It's called manifest destiny. People lost the land, and other people came and said, this is ours now,
Well, because technology kind of won out, right? Technology kind of won out. But I wonder if we can't intelligently, if there's a way to put the genie back in the box to some degree and intelligently use the technology, but still keep our independence at the same time.
Yeah, we're using the balance of nature, science, spirituality, practicality, and you're right. I think we're all trying to get back to a balance. The planet's out of balance, the society's out of balance. No matter what side of the spectrum you're on, we can all see that.
Even COVID is related to natural health. I mean, if people were naturally healthy, we wouldn't even have a mask issue to begin with, because young people already have this, but the immune systems would be strong. We wouldn't even be having these arguments.
Well, I did see one doctor, again, as an immunologist, not an immunologist, I'm disease expert, say that most of the suffering it's the inflammation of the tissues and organs. And that, again, it's the underlying health issues. In America, people keep saying, well, just let us go back to work, but isolate the nursing homes. Well, you know what? You look at a huge percentage of American adults that are unhealthy, that are obese, suffer from diabetes. So just to say, well, if we just go back to business as usual, you're not in the best health. So business as usual may not work out for you. We're not acknowledging as a country that we're a very unhealthy nation. And the whole fight about healthcare and government, and private, what's everyone doing to take care of themselves? I mean, I know one thing about COVID's been good for me. I haven't been eating any fast food. I didn't eat that much anyway, but I'm not eating on the road. I've lost weight. I'm cooking my own food. I'm, working in the garden. So, that's been a silver lining.
It is a silver lining. And I do have a little disagreement, though, because I think we have to go back anyway and build our immunity back up as a, herd immunity. But I do agree that a lot of people are simply unhealthy. And if they just simply went back to health, there would be no issue. They would just take it off the table.
What you're saying, simply go back. People, we have, again, because the powers that be, we have junk food addictions, we have medication addictions, we have people, like my mom, she never was always go to a doctor, get a pill, take it. It was never like, well, let's see how you can heal yourself. Let's look at a natural cure. Let's look at herb, alternative medicine, diet, exercise. I don't, on the one hand, I think that's, America was kind of on an exercise kick. It seemed like a lot of people were going to gyms, and I think there's probably been a backslide there. People at home, it's hard to get motivated.
But Mark, think about the weaknesses and strengths, as you talked about earlier, about different generations. The post-World War II generation, baby boomer generation, one of the weak spots, I would call it, is an over-reliance on medicine, and not medicine as it used to come from the earth, but, what do you call that? Pharmaceuticals and that kind of thing. I mean, our parents' generation was super into belief, and that kind of stuff was gonna save everybody.
qualified, yes, when they got older. I mean, at first they were like, the father, I don't go to the doctor, don't worry about it. And it was the whole old school, put some Vicks on. And then as you get in the 60s and 70s, hey, we got a pill for this, we got a pill for that. Again, it became a profit market. We can cure this without having to get to the underlying root.
So we have corporate. So today we have, I would say, corporateness, but we don't have. I see. To me, the pure sense of, let's just say business for a second. Let's talk about business for a second. The pure sense to me of business is free markets, let's say, or call them free enterprise, let's say. In other words, the ability of you and me to engage with each other, put contact tracks together that are private between the two of us, to basically do whatever business we want together, right? That's the pureness of it. That has been moved into like a corporate type of thing, which is kind of like bastardized the whole thing. And so I'm certainly with you on that. I think a lot of the things that we've split off into lately have been kind of artificially. For instance, I'll give you a for instance, and maybe to the audience here. You know that when you go around and listen to your radio, I used to do this all the time because I was always driving. I would always hear political radio. It was always about politics. Now, of course, politics are important when elections are close, but are they really that important 4 years out? But all we hear was like, we would hear one tribe going against the other on the radio, and it would always generally be politically oriented. I think that is kind of weird, actually.
Well, but it's because it's the whole sports offshoot. Politics has become sports.
Yep.
And people get emotionally involved in their team, whether it's the LA Rams or the LA Democrats or the Cleveland Indians or the Ohio GOP. So we like that whole. It's all basically trying to get people emotionally charged. They'll listen to the ads.
Everybody wants a champion. I've heard it said before. Everyone wants a champion, an external champion, because they're not a champion inside. Like, we've lost our way. So we're always looking for some champion, some guru, or somebody to tell us how to live, or somebody to, and then we find out we live our whole lives and we realize they don't exist in a sense. I mean, they may, even if they do exist, I'm not saying they don't exist at all, but the people that are praiseworthy out there, their praiseworthiness really has nothing to do with us. They can teach us a few things and kind of keep us in the direction, but ultimately we are designed, in my opinion anyway, to be self-correcting, to have something inside that's telling us how to do that. And yet I think so few people are going that route that they almost have to have an outside hero.
I agree 100% on that. See, we agree 100% on something.
Okay, Marc, maybe we can close out here for now. You know what? Because we're really getting to the end of an hour here. I would like to hopefully follow up sometime, because I didn't know where this would go necessarily. I kind of had a few notes written down, but I didn't really know where to go, especially our first conversation. But I would love to follow.
The rails pretty early. Let me tell you. I said it went off the rails pretty early.
But that's fine. Off the rails to me is good.
This is good. I was joking.
Yeah, but what I'd like to do sometime with you, hopefully soon, is maybe do a part 2, because I also want to, and originally I want to talk about success. Obviously, we haven't talked directly. I mean, these are all things that are clues to personal and internal success and all that. I think there's a lot of clues in this, what we just talked about. But I'd also like to talk about external success and getting people up to speed. I'd love to talk about your career, how you got where you are now, like how you built that, and any habits of success, and also kind of like words of wisdom, so to speak, that you've got to pass on to people to help them, especially post-COVID, or maybe not post-COVID, but yeah, post the COVID world that we're in, so that we can kind of segue, and we're all kind of learning as we go too in that way. But so people can be successful now, because I really want people to come back and be successful in their lives. We have to be. We have to make a living, of course, obviously money-wise, but we have to just be successful and not let this stuff stop us.
Well, you think of all the businesses, the small businesses especially, that were successful that may not come back. Those people had that drive to start from nothing. So it's burdensome and heartbreaking for some, but they have the ability to do it again.
Right. The people, they say people who are, millionaires or whatever, really something going, you could pull that all away from them. A lot of the ones who are really successful, and they can get it back, because it's about knowledge of knowing how to, it's not the money so much, it's the knowledge of how to do it, right?
And like I said, I'm not a big Trump fan, but look at he's had business successes and failures. He just kept going.
He kept going. One thing I knew that would make him, one thing I knew that would make him a very tough president, like him or not, for you obviously not, but is that I saw old interviews and things with him, and I saw he had like grit, and maybe that's something that came from, that we can get from that older generation. What's that?
How's the grit on the side of his neck? Is what I'm. He had grit.
Anyway, can we do a follow-up sometime, hopefully not too far distant, and just kind of focus in on that part of it?
Yeah.
I would love to do that, and I know the audience would really love that as well. So
in my house, I'm getting bitten by flying squirrels while you're out there under the malaria net.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get around this, but maybe I'll be under the net next time. But I want to thank you for coming on, Mark, and we're gonna, God willing, do this again, and we're going to get into some other subject matter too. But I just wanted to I knew we'd kind of explore today, because we hadn't really talked like this for a little while, but it was really good for me, and hopefully useful to the audience as well.
Hopefully, yeah, but it was enjoyable. No matter what, I think if you just listen to people and say, hey, people that disagree, and friendship transcends politics and certain outlooks, and the fact that just reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. People need that right now. There's a lot of people that we don't realize how isolated they are, or maybe they can just use a few good words, and maybe that might turn someone's day. So yeah,
I think we can use a lot more of that. Anyway, thank you, man, for coming. And I have to exit you from this here. Sorry about that.
Leave button. I can just hit that.
What's that?
I got a leave button. I can just hit the leave button.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much.
I'm going to close out after that, having you on. But thanks so much for being with us today, Mark, and being a good sport, and talking about your life, and being willing to just talk. And I think we need just more conversation in this world as well.
All right. I agree. Amen.
All right. Thanks. And we'll look forward to talking to you real soon. Okay. All right. Take care, Mark. All right, man, I'm going to close out, and that was my friend Marc Yaffee, and I didn't necessarily, obviously we don't know how it's going to go, but I've known Mark for decades, and good guy, good, we don't agree on a lot of stuff politically, but I don't see him as a bitter kind of mean kind of person, and I think we just need to talk to each other more as Americans, and worldwide, if you're watching this worldwide as well. We just need to talk to people more. I think that's one thing that COVID has probably pulled us away from. Maybe got us talking to people more around us, but maybe cut off a little bit from the world out there. So if that can be one thing that would be useful today, hopefully that was useful in just being able to talk to people we don't typically talk to and don't always agree with. Again, I want to do this part 2 with Mark and really kind of hone in on the success part, and because he's a very successful comedian, and he's really kind of pulled himself up. As long as I've known him, he's pulled himself up from the bootstraps, and what he's wanted to do, he's gone out and just done it. So I have a lot of respect for Mark on that count. In any case, I'm going to sign out now. These podcasts that we're doing, we're going to make them available. If you go to oldschoolus.com to find more information. If you are on my Subscribestar, one of my subscribers, we're going to make these available. The whole podcast that we put out is only going to be available to my subscribers. Go to subscribestar.com, put in my name, Patrick Rooney, Rooney. I'll have a link in the description. And we'll show you some videos from this anyway, if not. But if you want to get the whole thing, only for my subscribers. That's something just for my subscribers. So anyway, thank you for being with me. We're going to keep this going. Natural health, success, and freedom. A lot of the success part we're going to bring back in, and I'll do something about the bug. I don't know what, man. If you don't mind me swatting the bugs a little bit out here, then I like being outdoors and being part of this natural environment. But in the South, it's a little bit challenging because we do have bugs. All right. Anyway, thanks for being with me today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on Old School with Patrick Rooney. Visit oldschoolus.com to find out more about natural health, success, and freedom. See you next time.